The Last of Us 2 was one of the biggest releases of 2020, being highly rated by critics and selling over 4 million copies in the first week. But not everybody thought it lived up to the hype. In fact, depending on where you look, some people really didn't like it at all. This led many to believe that the critics had been paid off, and the reason being that positive reviews somehow boost sales. On the other side of the fence, there are those who don't think that review scores have an effect on sales, that in spite of a poor critical reception, a game can still perform well commercially, and that ultimately reviews don't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. So, which side is correct? How much importance does the average person give to a review score, and does it influence their decision to make a purchase? To answer these questions, I want to take a look at the role product reviews play, how they've become a strategic part of online sales, and ultimately if they do impact game sales. Before we dive into how we buy video games and why we read reviews, I think it's important to understand gaming journalism's place in gaming culture and how this came to be. Game reviews have existed in some form since the late 70s. Before the internet, the only way to find out if a game was good without playing it or asking someone who had was through newspapers or magazines. By the mid-90s, there were plenty of well-respected gaming publications to choose from, containing news, articles, and reviews. For people who grew up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, video game journalism was an essential tool. Outside of the big titles, which might get TV commercials and billboards, there was no other way of knowing not only what was good, but also what was available. When the internet arrived, reviews quickly made the transition to digital. At first, it was professional journalists that generated the vast majority of gaming-related content. But it wasn't long before the number of independent reviews increased, as creating content online became more accessible. Today, game reviews still play an important role in letting us know what there is and what's worth playing. Their importance early on helped cement them as an inseparable part of gaming culture, and they continue to thrive thanks to the variety of sources available and the ease in which you can access them online. We've never been more informed or had so much choice, making it easier than ever to find an opinion you trust. Review popularity, unsurprisingly, isn't limited to gaming. Finding an opinion on just about anything these days is usually just a few clicks away. Along with entertaining us, they're a resource that can tell us more about a product. They can make it easier to choose between similar items, let us know if it's something we can enjoy for years to come, and they can even help us feel better about the choices we've already made. For instance, have you ever found yourself reading a review for something you've already bought? Review popularity is a phenomenon that hasn't gone unnoticed by businesses either. So let's look at how reviews are leveraged to encourage people to make a purchase. One of the most obvious examples of gaming coverage being used to sell something is when game companies purchase ads alongside it. The strategy behind this is pretty self-explanatory. You put ads next to reviews, articles, and news because that coverage attracts eyeballs from the audience you want to target, and the more eyeballs that see your advertisement, the more sales you're likely to make. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to gauge how effective this type of marketing is. Ads that sit next to reviews online, for example, don't perform well when talking about the number of clicks they get. According to Google AdWords, the average click-through rate on banner ads across the web is less than 0.5%. To make things worse, it's difficult to get data that proves the consumption of a review leads to a click on a banner. Even if you were to put a big fat buy now button in the actual review, which they don't do for obvious reasons, it would still be difficult to know if the content of the review is what influenced the click. Now, some people might be convinced to click a banner by watching or reading a review, but others who've also been convinced to make a purchase may prefer to get it elsewhere, such as from a physical shop or somewhere else online. Understanding a review's ability to influence a sale in this use case is nearly impossible. Okay, so if banner ads don't get clicks and there's limited data that proves that reviews convince people to buy stuff, then this strategy doesn't sound effective at all, or at the very least, pretty hard to measure. There is another way that people consume reviews in large quantities though, and thankfully, this is much easier to measure in terms of success. I'm talking about online stores. Online stores have become increasingly successful at convincing customers to buy their products, and the inclusion of reviews is one of the many tactics they use. The layout of these sites and the information they choose to include might seem arbitrary, but this is far from the truth. Big sites such as eBay have very deliberate designs, which they constantly tweak based on user data to make sure they maximize every possible opportunity. Here, reviews are used as part of a heuristic technique. This is basically a way of letting people easily find the information they need to complete a purchase without having to go elsewhere. Reviews on these sites are often provided by other customers, and in many cases there will be more than one to read. On Amazon, user reviews not only let you know if the product is worth purchasing, but they can also tell you if the seller is trustworthy. It's the same on Airbnb. Higher positive reviews have been linked with higher levels of trust and ultimately result in more occupancy. This association between reviews and trust is why they're so important from a seller's perspective, because people often consider products with reviews next to them to be more trustworthy. Now, you might assume that user scores aren't very valuable. I mean, it's just some random person on the internet, right? But a recent study suggests that young adults are actually more likely to be influenced by a positive user review than an expert one. What's interesting is that while older adults don't appear to value these opinions nearly as much, they still take them into consideration, particularly when they're negative. Expert reviews still have a high level of trust with most people, but according to an article published in the Harvard Business Review, people are more trusting of critic reviews that are less favorable. In other words, critic opinions are perceived to be more honest when they aren't glowing, and maybe this explains why some people feel that critic reviews are fake when they're overwhelmingly positive. It's difficult to find data that points to one type of review being more effective than the other at driving sales. This is probably because there are so many different variables that come into play, such as age, socioeconomic status, cultural background, where and when the review was read, the length of the review, and if the review comes from a trusted source. But what is clear is that people do trust them and use them when making a purchase. A 2017 report on US consumer behavior shows that reviews play a significant role in online shopping habits. 82% of people surveyed said the content of a review has convinced them to make a purchase, and 93% said that online reviews did impact their purchasing decision. The same report also concluded that more than half of the people surveyed would pay more for the same product or service if they knew they would have a positive experience with it. When looking at the data, it's easy to understand why businesses include them on sites which sell products, and armed with this knowledge, those product page designs stop looking so arbitrary. To better understand how important reviews are and where they fit in the hierarchy of information on a product page, let's look at how these pages are designed. Joe Leach, a product strategy and user experience coach who's worked with companies such as eBay and Disney, suggests that a successful product page include the following information in this order of importance: product image, product name, buy button, price, product headlines, delivery options, reviews, further photos, specification, and full product blurb. What stands out here is that while reviews only come in at number 7, they have a higher level of importance than product specifications and the description. This means that reviews are considered to be more valuable and more persuasive in the sales process than the information that the company itself has given about the product. The Nelson Norman Group, who provide research and guidance on how to build better products, also advocate for including reviews as part of an online shopping experience. They explain why it's important to display multiple reviews and the function they serve during the sales process. Review summaries help users wade through large numbers of reviews to see what common issues or strength the product has. If you consider the parallels between how reviews are displayed next to products online and how Metacritic displays them, it's not hard to imagine how someone might use a site like Metacritic to help them make a purchase. I think it's also worth considering how dynamic the web has become. With the huge amount of user data that sites have access to, the type of information that is displayed can be tailored to a specific user. So, for example, if you've previously purchased from a site, they can then use that information to better understand the circumstances that resulted in you spending money. Have you ever wondered why pretty much every site wants you to sign up? Sure, they want to spam you with emails about their sweet deals, but they also want to learn everything they can about you. What you buy, when you buy, what you normally spend, what things you've bought together, and even the type of reviews you gravitate towards. The scary reality is that AI sophisticated enough to write a review already exists, and chances are you've already read something written by a bot. It's even possible that a bot could write something specifically for you based on previous reviews you've read before making a purchase. If you don't believe me, you should totally check out the video of Google's duplex AI calling to make a haircut appointment. It's both amazing and also terrifying. I mentioned earlier that reviews are just one sales device that product pages use, but marketing also piggybacks off their persuasive power. Remember those banner ads I mentioned earlier which don't get many clicks? They may not generate much direct revenue, but they are effective at following you around the web and reminding you which product to buy. A single banner isn't likely to convince you to do anything, but banners you see everywhere are much more likely to leverage existing hype by reminding you of that thing everyone is talking about. Sometimes these ads even do this literally by including review scores in their message. This form of marketing taps into something called herd mentality, where our desire to fit in with society influences our behavior. If we see everybody talking about something positively, we instinctively want in on it. This isn't the only psychological force at work either. A review's influence can also be explained by a cognitive bias known as the anchoring effect. Anchoring is a common human tendency to rely heavily on the first piece of information offered when making decisions. It occurs when that initial piece of information becomes the primary value that a person assigns to something. They then use that value as an anchor or baseline to make all subsequent judgments about it. So, if the first thing you're told about something is that it's good, then you're more likely to agree that it is good. If you're told something is bad, then you're equally as likely to see flaws in it. Reviews, whether they intend to be or not, are a form of marketing. They contribute to hype, and their ability to influence your opinion makes them a powerful form of social proof. Additionally, they can contribute to a fear of missing out. If all your favourite YouTubers are telling you that this is a must-play game, it can dramatically increase your desire to fit in and be part of the conversation. And this is why businesses often refer to YouTubers and other online personalities as influencers. Okay, so far a lot of what I've talked about has been in general terms, and it would be a bit of a stretch to assume that the people who buy kettles or Louis Vuitton handbags are the same people who buy Animal Crossing and Call of Duty. So, are people who play video games equally influenced by reviews as non-gamers? In 2010, Electronic Entertainment Design and Research, who claim to be the largest specialty video game research firm in the world, conducted a study to see if review scores changed people's perception of a game. They selected a group of 188 people who'd never played Plants vs Zombies and asked them to play the game for 20 minutes. The participants were divided into 3 groups, with the first being given an information pack that contained professional reviews with a score of 90. The second group was shown reviews with a score of 61, and the third group weren't shown any review scores at all. After playing the game, participants were asked if they would prefer $10 for completing the survey or if they wanted a copy of the game. The people from the group who had read the high rating review scores were more than twice as likely as those who had read the negative scores to take the game over the cash. When asked if they would recommend the game, 91% of the positive review score group said they would, versus only 65% of the negative score group saying that they would recommend it. This is only one small study, of course, and the fact that it was conducted on a game which is generally considered to be good is somewhat biased. Nevertheless, it does seem to indicate that review scores do have an impact on perception when talking specifically about games. So if review scores do influence sales, then surely the people who make them would be the ones impacted the most financially. To find out more, I reached out to Benjamin Lockman. He's the CEO of Pixel Maniacs, who created the criminally underrated Chroma Gun, to get their perspective on the subject. He said that his studio considered reviews to be important for a number of reasons. When talking specifically about user reviews on Steam and Metacritic, he said that, for us, as well as for many other studios, positive reviews are very important. It's not only important for us to increase the count of sales, but also to fulfill the wishes and ideas of our customers and fans. When asked if he thought review scores affected sales and if they had any way to measure that, he said, "In our experience, bad reviews generally lead to significantly lower sales figures. And yes, we use internally developed tools that not only help us to publish games, but also to monitor the success of our games." For a small studio like Pixel Maniacs, who don't have a massive AAA marketing budget, reviews are an essential part of their sales strategy. Smaller games don't always get the same mainstream media coverage either, so user reviews are one of the main channels they have to promote their game. With how much trust people assign to user reviews when making a purchase, maintaining a positive average score is therefore critical to a game's commercial success. There are lots of variables that can influence a person's decision to make a purchase, with gaming coverage and specifically reviews being just one component. Marketing is also a key factor in driving sales, and big AAA titles, and especially franchises with large existing player bases, can undoubtedly offset some negative criticism through marketing and brand loyalty. This makes defining exactly how persuasive reviews are very tricky. What is for sure though is that people do rely on game reviews when deciding if they should buy something. they have become an integral part of online shopping, and according to the numbers, the amount of people who read or watch reviews as part of their purchasing process is increasing. In a world where online shopping has become the norm, the ability to seek out the opinions of others quickly and without leaving the house has become incredibly valuable. Whether it's to find out more, get that last nod of approval before you buy, or simply to feel good about an existing purchase, game reviews have never been more important when it comes to selling games.